Hey guys, this is my second installment about the story of Nehemiah. Last time we discussed how Nehemiah's heart was broken by the desperate condition of his people in Jerusalem. But because he believed that God cared and was able and willing to help, he was prepared to move beyond prayer to participation and ask God for favor as he took action. Today we're going to see how God used Nehemiah to begin to drive change that Nehemiah himself desired to see. Early in chapter 2, Nehemiah takes a chance and he actually expresses emotion in the presence of the king. Now, this was inappropriate and risky. Surprisingly, rather than issuing a rebuke, the king inquires about Nehemiah's emotional state. Why are you looking sad? Now, Nehemiah's behavior has called attention to himself in the king's presence, and he is appropriately terrified. The king's displeasure could very well amount to a death sentence. Nevertheless, he bravely shares the desperate condition of his hometown while showing deference and respect for the king. Surprisingly, the king actually offers to help. He himself does not necessarily have this particular burden, but he is in a position to assist the person who does. So, with a prayer to God in heaven, Nehemiah asks the king to send him to rebuild Jerusalem. Nehemiah approaches the king with prayer and a plan. He has no control over what happens next, but he has done his part. The king agrees to his request by asking for a time frame. Now, it is interesting at this point that Nehemiah doesn't request more time to think or pray about it. He's already done that. He has decided what he wants to be different. He has prayerfully thought out a plan of action, not a complete plan, but enough of a plan to also be able to give a timeline. He has asked God for favor as he takes steps towards seeing this vision become a reality. And then, emboldened by God's obvious favor, he even asks for official protection in building materials. So Nehemiah was ready for this important work because, number one, God had moved his heart to go beyond prayer to participation. Number two, had engaged his head. He actually thought about what he wanted to be different and what role he might play. And then number three, now Nehemiah was ready to offer his hands and feet. So the lesson today, my friends, is that God is looking for people who will drive change. He needs people who will tackle complex issues while depending on his favor. God doesn't need someone with a complete plan and all the answers, amen, but he does need someone who is willing. And the thought for you today is that he may have already positioned you for impact. Maybe as a Nehemiah, someone with a burden who needs favor and assistance, or possibly as the king, someone in a position to assist. So how can you and I prepare for God to make his move through us? 4 steps. Number one, decide what you want to be different. Be specific. What do you actually want to be different about the desperate condition you're facing? Number two, create a plan of action. It doesn't have to be complete, maybe just one step. And then consider, am I someone to assist in this plan? Or am I possibly someone that could actually drive this plan forward? Number three, pray for favor as you take the next step. Of course, be open to being redirected, but pray for favor as you take the next step. And then number four, when God shows favor, when you see evidence that God's hand is in this, be bold. Because when you begin to experience God's favor, you begin to realize that even though your hands are on the wheel, God is actually doing the driving. Be brave, my friends. Praying for you, David.